I am very proud and excited to invite my friend Dylan Snowden onto the show today. Dylan is a financial coach for couples and individuals who want to have a better, healthier relationship with money. I know Dylan because I was his client at one time. Joe and I were my husband, and he helped us so much. Dylan, welcome to the show.
Rachel, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, I'm really excited to talk about this subject. I haven't talked about this subject yet on my show, and it's a big part of the decision about whether to embark on this path. There's a lot of like unknown and hidden expenses, as you know, when you just start a family, and then to be also involved in a system where you're not sure what it's going to bring you is just another level of that. So I think I want to start there, and I want to just ask you. How do you prepare for something that you, when you don't know quite what it's going to entail? How do you do that financially?
Yeah, and I gotta tell you, it's like there's so many things that are big that we buy, right? We might buy our car, our first car. We know how to do it the next time. We might have a wedding, and that's a big expense. We might have a home. A lot of those expenses are kind of dialed in, right? We know when we're buying a house what to expect. There's an offer price, and there's repairs or maintenance we have to do for the wedding. You have caterers, you have expenses. They might grow. Obviously, you build your wedding out. But when you have a family and starting to bring children into the house, then there's all these other expenses as well, because it's not necessarily like they cost a dollar, but really about like what is the loss of income that could be happening? What is the
Mm.
emotional costs? And what are their needs specifically that are not your own? So really having a child in this situation is one of the more major unknowns when it comes to our expense life as an adult. Now, that doesn't mean it's not impossible. Obviously, people have been doing it for millions of years, and regardless about what their money is. But what I always say is, and this is a guiding principle of my coaching, is that we try to forecast as much as we can. And when it comes to child rearing, there are numbers. We know how expensive it can be. We can look at data points to say, this is how much it is. This is how much it's going to be over 15, 20 years, talking about college XYZ. I like to get more down into the firmer numbers. And especially if we're talking about forced fostering, there might be a level of preparedness that goes into it that many couples may not have. And then say like, okay, what do we want our role as a parent, a caregiver to be? Is this a situation where we will be giving time? Is this a situation where we won't be working as much? Is this a situation where we will need to change our habits at home or changing even how our home is? So really dialing into those, and I can go into more detail, but really trying to ask those bigger questions about what do we want really that first year to be when we have a child, and trying to outline that, which helps us then outline year 2, 3, 4, 5, and maybe up to 18.
Yeah, that's it's like great advice. I remember when Joe and I were moving to New York from California, you really helped us in terms of that, in terms of like what is it going to look like to move, and what are all those moving expenses, and then uh, how much does it cost to live in New York, and what is the cost of all of the stuff. And you helped us do that. And I can't overstate how helpful it was to have you helping us do that, because it's overwhelming. Like it's
Mhm.
like you don't know where to start. You're like, but there's no, I don't know what it's going to be like. So how can I like plug these numbers in if I'm not exactly sure? And I think what I learned is there's going to be uh whatever you guesstimate, or whatever you put into that spreadsheet, it's probably going to be more.
Yeah.
Is that a fair assumption, to like assume it's going to be a little more than what you're thinking?
Well, think about those earlier examples of buying the house, buying the first car, or the wedding. If you look back at your past 20 years of your life, you probably like, oh yeah, they were more, And I think about
Hmm.
vacations. One of the bigger things I plan out with clients is budgeting for vacations, whether it's a weekend cabin up to Tahoe or it's a Disneyland 5-day trip. We break down the expenses because we always think, oh, our brain will try to do the math and say it's a $3,000 experience. But then when we look at hotel, flight, yeah, but then food, then restaurants, then gifts, then supplies, then we miss a flight. All those things add up, and always there's an
Hmm.
unknown. So when you talk about that first question, it's like, how do we prepare for the unknown? It is about adding a percentage. Now, when we talk about travel, it's easy to say. I say to clients, add 15% of what that base number is after you add all those different kind of categories of spending, 15% on top of that. That should be a good
Mhm.
base plus that 15%. But when
Wow.
you're having a
Okay.
family, yeah, there's going to be a little bit more unknowns to say, like, okay, what are the physical things that need to change for our home? What are the physical costs to update our home for needs for a child, regarding the age of that child? And then also, like, what are the financial support questions we have for if we're a dual income family or a single income family? What are the child's childcare needs? How are they going to be met for that first year and going forward as well?
Yes.
And
Yeah, good point. And I do want to point out for the listeners that most people are aware, but some might not be, that there is a stipend that you receive as a foster parent. However, that stipend doesn't go very far. So, when people are saying, "Oh, they're doing it for the money," it's like, well, unless they're doing like they have 30 kids in their house, it's probably not going to amount to that much. So, would you encourage people to just be like, don't even don't think about that, or would you encourage them to actually put that into their budget as well, that number?
it's tricky because it's like it's hard. You don't want to ignore it because it's like, okay, this is a benefit from the state to say, like, yeah, we
Mhm.
appreciate what you're doing, and it's considered really not an income, but they would like to think of it as a reimbursement for costs, right?
Right, that's what it is, truly, I should say. It's for the child. It's not
Yes.
like you're getting paid to do this. Yeah.
Yeah, and that consideration is that it covers some of those costs, but I think between the states, it's like can average come from 400 a month to 1,200 a month, so definitely check
Mhm.
out what your
Yes.
reimbursement would
Yep.
be for each state, and also
Right.
with that, I think, you know, it would do better to not think about it in the sense of the idea of, like, it letting that dollar stretch too thin by saying it's counting for too many things. I would say, yeah, try to have an understanding, first off, of what your current costs are. What does it cost for you to live in a home without that child right now? And if
Mhm.
you don't know that, it's going to be a lot more difficult to figure out that number when you have a child because as someone who has a 6 and a 4-year-old, it's harder to figure out problems once the child is there. It's a lot calmer in the house.
This
My
is true.
children are at school right now. I have another hour and 15 minutes. This is when my brain is clear to get work done. And so
Yep.
for folks considering fostering, I would say, like, okay, you're probably getting a lot of things in order to make that decision. One of them should be your money to say, like, well, how much money do we have available to support the child on a monthly basis? What are our needs? What are our incomes? What are our major expenses through the year? And another thing is, like, what are our annual expenses change with having a child? What about travel with the child? What about just not the diapers, but medical expenses in most states are covered for checkups and things like that.
Mhm.
But if there's any other medical needs that child need, who covers those, either the state
Mhm.
or yourself out of pocket?
Mhm. Yeah. Luckily, with children in care, they are awarded Medicaid. Is it Medicaid or Medicare? I always get that confused. My kids actually have it, but I believe it's Medicaid. And so they would have Medicaid. Uh, it doesn't always cover the providers that you want or something like that.
Mhm.
So like a lot of people will put their children on their own plan as well. We actually learned the hard way, and I'll just mention this because we're talking about money. Um, from the state of California, which is where we adopted both of our children, we ended up our children have Medicaid until 18, possibly even 21. And I'm not sure if it's like that for everyone in every state, but that's how it is for us. And we sort of made the mistake, actually, when we first moved to New York. We wanted to make sure we could get the good providers. And, we ended up putting them on our healthcare plans, and it ended up costing us like a lot of money, like
Mm.
way more money. And so we ended up getting rid of that and going back to straight Medicaid. And yeah, it is a little bit more difficult to find providers, but for us, it just was like, yeah, I mean, we just wasted a lot of money on just the per visit to see somebody and all of that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
So I think it's an individual choice, but it's something worth thinking about because the advice I got when we first started fostering, and I think this is true for any foster case, like before you adopt, is like make sure that Medicaid is active and make sure you use that Medicaid because it's there for that child and it really covers everything.
Yeah.
at little or no cost.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's just something to think about.
Yeah, absolutely, and, like, dialing in on those numbers so that you're prepared for it as well
Mhm,
helps you be not surprised, but also lets you say, "Okay, if we're not spending money on out-of-pocket costs for that, where does that money go for? Like, where do we put
mhm.
that?" Because a lot of times when we start a family or our family grows, it's like we want to do more than maybe our pocketbook allows us to. So I really
Right.
think a key thing is like having a conversation with your partner if you're solo in this and saying like, okay, what are the most important things for me to do financially this year?
Mhm.
Is it to take that time off? Is it for be able to work a certain amount of hours? Is it be able to care for yourself, care for your child at the same time? Identify what those things are and see if there
Mhm.
is a financial number attached to them. Not always they are. It can be that's like, I need to get myself more rest. And that is a way to find that. And that if you need to be able to spend time with
Mhm.
more of your child, doesn't mean going to Disneyland. It can be mean going to the playground, setting up play dates. So
Yep.
evaluating what those things are that you really want in this year help you to understand so that there's no surprises for those expenses going forward as well.
Right. Yeah, I do like that, making your budget or spending plan a reflection of your values and what you value in your life, and that's something I think I really learned from you, that Joe and I learned, was also, like, it's not about cutting out every single thing
Right.
that brings you joy or, like, that you like to do. I mean, Joe and I, my husband and I, really, we love going to shows. We love going to rock shows, and so that was always a thing because it would be like, uh-oh, we spent like $500 on tickets to like see some band or whatever. But you got it. You were like, hey, that's your thing. That's what you like. But you always did say that thing about like, okay, so what is the price of that experience? That's a $600 experience. So is it
Mhm.
worth it in terms of that? Like, can you just talk a little bit more for our listeners about that kind of thing?
Yeah, I think a lot of times, there's 2 ways to spend money. I think there's the fun ways, the rock shows, the
Mhm.
adventures, the joy, the stuff, the nice couch, the outdoor furniture. Once you maybe have a home, you get a little older, it's like, yeah, you want nicer things. It's called keeping up with the Joneses, and it's very easy to spend because we also live in a society where there's a million places for us to spend. 20 years ago, we didn't all have phones in our pockets that just immediately could bring us new furniture in a few hours, our groceries, our dinner. And because we have that accessibility, it's more difficult to spend. Or excuse me, it's more difficult to save. So what I
Mhm.
want to say is that like, okay, those are our things we want to spend money on. Some of they're relevant. But at the same time, there's going to be serious things we need to spend money on that we cannot avoid. Those things can be costs like car maintenance. The average American spends $1,400 a year on car maintenance. If you own a home, home maintenance. Those are thousands of dollars a year. If you have medical costs for yourself, or if you do need to see family or give support to family, those can be financial considerations. So, what I really stress is saying, like, okay, you need to outline what those costs are. Like coming from the serious side, like what are 6 things looking maybe at the last year of your calendar that were expenses that you were like, ah, shucks, but we need to do them because likely they'll happen again. Your car is a depreciating thing. It is slowly falling apart. So is your home. It wants to turn back to dust, essentially. So what you have to do is like, we're acknowledging we need to put money towards those things. But a lot of times, if we just put money towards the serious things, we're gonna break too because we wanna go see that concert. We wanna go on that vacation. We wanna go get a new credenza. Before I did this work, I didn't know what credenza was, right? So these are things that we want. So we have to
Yep.
serve both gods. So what I do is they say, like, listen, list out the things that are most serious, that are realistic to your life. Like I just mentioned, medical costs, personal health costs,
Mhm.
home, car, emergency fund if you lose your job. That being the number one. Forgive me for not saying that first. But if
Yeah.
you lose your job, all your bills start coming in. So you need to have, aim
Yep.
for $1,000 at first, but
Mhm.
really grow it to 3 to 6 months of your living expenses set aside. Not in
Mm.
the stock market,
Okay.
but just in a nice, sweet, high yield savings account, earning like 3% as of today, and then you don't have
Mhm.
to think about it. Those should be your serious goals. And then fun, saying like,
Yeah.
okay, what do we want to do this year or the next 2 years, maybe the next even 5 years? Just writing them down because a lot of people just kind of keep them in their brain and
Yeah.
they'll be like, oh, I want to do this, I want to do this. And if you're like me, when I wake up in the morning, I look at my to-do list, I've got 40 things on there.
Mhm.
I have to
Mhm.
take care of dinners and meals. I'm solo parenting right now. My wife's out of town. I have to clean the house. There's dishes. I also send some emails to family and friends. if I don't write it down and I don't evaluate which one's the most valuable, I'm not gonna get that much done, and all the stuff that I really need to get done gets pushed to the bottom. So
Mhm.
really, when I say write it down and think about it, you really gotta write it down. There's no way of getting around it. I know it sounds like
Mhm.
sometimes, uh, I remember a kid and you start class in 7th grade, they give you a bunch of worksheets for math, and it was just busy work. I hate
Mhm.
busy work. This isn't busy work. This is you literally seeing that on the list. Your brain starts to sort it and saying, "Oh, these are most
Mm.
important." I've never
Mhm.
seen vacation to see family in Portland right next to getting a new car. And so now I know like, oh, which one is the most important to me? Then I can start saving
Mhm.
for that one as well. So really outlining and writing out and detailing what is important is a critical step for that.
Mhm. You mentioned having a savings of like a liquid savings of 3 to 6 months. Is that what you said? 3 to 6 months or 3 to 9 months?
3 to 6, well, that's a good question, right? So
Okay.
can I go into why that
Yeah,
is such a
please do.
big time difference? So the
Yeah.
question an individual kinda asks of like, "Well, how much should I have if I lose my job?" That's really what an emergency fund is. Some people will say
Mhm.
like, "Well, if I have a house maintenance issue, like plumbing issue, which I've had in the past in my old house, or wanna help out family," those are fine. But when we lose our job and we work for an employer, every bill starts coming. Mortgages start coming, right?
Mhm.
And our rent or our car payment, and we really can't get behind on that.
Yep.
Now, how do we come to 3, 6, 12 months maybe? The question I think you should ask yourself is how long would it take for you to find a job that would pay you equivalent of what you're earning now? Now, I've had lawyers as clients who said, "Dylan, we're always going to need lawyers. I can find a job in a month."
Mm.
Great.
Mhm.
Your emergency fund maybe 1 to 2 months, okay. But I've also
Mhm.
had TV writers, and if you're familiar with what's happening in Hollywood, it's tough out
Yeah.
there. So they've
Mhm.
told me like, "Yeah, I want a year of savings set aside. It'll take me a year to find another job that'll pay me as well as I earn right now."
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
ask that question to yourself. So a good rule to start with is if you don't have anything, if you're listening to this and say, "I don't got a dollar," start with 1,000. Then
Mhm.
say like, okay, identify how much your month of living expenses, and that's like mortgage, rent, but it's also Netflix. It's also going out to eat.
Yeah.
It's also restaurants. It's Grubhub. All those things. People will say to me sometimes, "Well, Dylan, I don't want to count those things. If I lose my job, I'm just going to cut back." God bless you if you can. But in
Mhm.
reality, let's just talk about the situation. You just lost your job, likely a surprise. It feels terrible. And now I'm also taking away your dinners out. And I'm also taking away
Mhm.
that trip to Ojai you wanted to take. Are
Mhm.
you really gonna do that? Odds are you might not because you feel bad. So I am not in the
Mhm.
mindset of saying once you lose your job, you have to start eating beans and rice. That's gonna be
Mhm.
really a bad sad on top of sad. Let you still live your life. So look at really what your expenses are for those fixed costs, but also
Mhm.
those flexible ones, the ones that you make discretionary choices with, the funner ones, and then try
Right.
to save 3 to 6 months of that, depending on
Mhm.
when you can find that
Mhm.
next job.
Yeah, I wanna drill down on the, just getting a sense how do people get a sense of what they're spending every month? I
Yeah.
mean, that was the big like, our first eye-opening thing was we had no idea how much our life cost per month, and
Yeah.
when we found that out, it was shocking how
Yeah.
much our life was costing. So, can you help us with that?
You know, we have here's the thing I will say. It's we try to think about we have a number in our head. I think most folks have to think about a number and they say like, "Oh, this is where I probably am." Because I'll ask people in discovery calls and first meetings, say like, "How much do you think?" And they'll start adding in numbers. Well, my rent is this, my car payment is this. I go out to dinner a few times, but I know if they're doing that, they're not going to be close to the number because the
Mm.
average American spends 3 to 5 times a day. So that can be upwards of 150 this. Our
Mhm.
monkey brains can't keep that number running as a ticker for a whole month. So
Mhm.
listeners might know their number, but I'm going to wager if you know your number, you know it because you're looking at your numbers. You are looking at your
Mm.
bank statements, you're using an app, maybe you're using an AI tool to evaluate it. But if you are not doing that, if you are not actually looking at numbers, likely are you're not very close to it. And there's no
Mhm.
shame in that. It's hard to do. It's not easy to keep it in your head, as I said. But
Mhm.
I think when we look at people who have an income, have home expenses, when I was 26, living in New York, single, my life cost $3,500. It was rent and beer and
Yep.
pizza. That was
Yep.
it. It's not like that at 42. So if you're
That's true.
over somewhere in that age or close to it, you've got so many more expenses. And we're not even talking about those big monthly expenses that'll come up like getting contact lenses every 3 months for $600.
Yes.
Going home to see family or friends, those plane tickets are $3,000. Oh, the holidays are here. Buy a Christmas tree in New York City, that's $212. And also you have to
Mhm.
give gifts to your doorman, your kids' teachers,
Right.
and
Yeah.
everyone else.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
you have to look at what your daily expenses are and then also the annual expenses, because I've seen that be, $40,000 of things that
yeah.
just happen once or twice a year. But you asked me the question, "How do I do it?" Right?
Right.
That's what I
Yes.
should be answering
Yes.
it. So that's
But
that's the
no, but all of
preface.
this is good. I mean, all of it is like, "Yep, uh-huh," and it does, I will just say, drive me crazy. The things that are like, for instance, our electric bill, it doesn't come every month, it comes every
Every
other
2 months.
month,
Yeah,
and so
yeah.
that is confusing because it's like, "Well, then what how much are we spending?" And, I just find it all very confusing
Yeah,
without
it
someone
can be
like
it's
you
and it's
helping.
say that one more time?
I said without somebody like you helping me, I find it all and so what ends up happening is my mind just would go blank, or I'd just be like, "You know what? I can't, like, whatever, because I can't with this." So,
Yeah.
how do we even deal with that?
There's so
The
many different
overwhelm.
variables. Well, the first thing I would do is like saying, okay, you want to find out how your monthly spending is. And there's a few different ways going about that. First thing is put it on your calendar when you're doing it. Don't do it right now, even if you're listening, because you're listening. But find a time on your calendar. Give yourself 30 minutes or an hour over the next week or two. Okay. And block it off. You have to preserve that time because I'm going to be honest, if you haven't been doing it, part of you doesn't want to do it. So if
Mhm,
you don't want to do it, what I've seen with clients doing this 8 years now, coaching over 250 couples and individuals, is that the calendar is stone. It's written in stone. So preserve that time. Say like, okay, I'm going to look at my money on Thursday at 8 o'clock in the morning or Saturday at 2 p.m., whatever it may be.
mhm.
Don't do it at the end of the day, by the way.
And if you're a part of a couple, are you saying that we should do this together, or are you
Yeah.
saying you should do it separately? Okay,
I think you should do it together.
okay.
And there's a few other notes for couples to make sure that it's successful and it doesn't end in divorce, because I'm a big fan of not divorcing about money if you don't need to.
Mhm,
Um, I think it's about doing, you could do basically an audit first. And a lot of times people think of money as that, like, yeah, it runs. My rent gets paid. I got Netflix. I'm just trying to survive. But I think we really actually have to start thinking of our money now as like a business. And if you're
mhm,
running a business, like a small business, if I ran like we had a 99-cent video store next to us, and if they didn't look at how much money when I was a kid growing up, that's what was there, and if they didn't look at how much
mhm.
money they had, they wouldn't run. They would not have a
Yeah.
good idea of like, "Oh, we didn't have as much rentals. Oh, that seems like it's okay." People kept showing in. They knew their numbers. You know your profit or
Right,
your
yeah.
loss.
So
So,
true.
you
Yeah.
really can't if you are stressed about money at all, if you're listening to this being like, "Oh, yeah, money gives me anxiety," just treat it like a business. Start saying like, "This is Connie Incorporated, Donald and
Yeah.
Tricia Incorporated," whatever it may be, and then say like, "Okay, we need to do an audit. What are our expenses?" Now, how do you find that out? You can look at your checking account information from Bank America, Chase, just look through that. You can even go through your credit cards, and sometimes credit cards will give you these fangled like breakdowns, bar charts, and all that kind of
Mhm,
things. I'm a bigger fan. I use an online tool called Monarch, and what Monarch does is that it basically aggregates your checking accounts, your credit cards, your spending accounts, essentially, and it pulls those transactions, categorizes it, and it gives you a breakdown for the last 3 months, and you can see this is where your money went.
yeah.
Oh, because not everybody usually just pays off one card. Like if I just use a debit card, that's fine. But usually people use 2 credit cards, a debit card for this, debit card for
Right.
that.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
it's hard when you're like one at a time going through it. So put
yeah.
them all in the app.
Agree. Yeah.
App is $50 I know for a year. I think
Mhm.
right now 50 or 100. And then
Yeah,
you
we're
just look at
using
it.
it now too and love it, like, really
It
love it. Yeah.
it's a great tool, and it's well worth it because I will tell you, Rachel, I've done probably over 800 introductory calls with people, and I'll ask them all the same questions, like, "How much do you think you spend in a month?"
Mhm,
And
mhm.
I've asked that, I've probably over 800 times. I bet only 20 times people have got within $400,
Wow.
500.
Wow.
And that's not, again, their fault. It's like we're doing other stuff. We're
Yeah.
having a family. We're making sure our
Yeah.
parents are okay. We're successful at our businesses. And the other system is kind of running. It's like every day, well, lights are on. That's what's
Right.
working.
Yeah.
But it
Yeah.
doesn't have to be that stressful. I think you can remove the stress if you look at it. So audit it, look at how much you spend. And then from
Mhm.
there, say like, okay, what do we want to change? Are we
Mhm.
saving money is really the question. It's like, if you're not saving any money, then saying like, okay, what do we want to be saving for? What are our actual goals? Like, remember I talked about those serious goals, like the home
Mhm.
maintenance, car maintenance, medical maintenance, like body maintenance, but the fun things like vacations, like furniture upgrades, like maybe a new car in a few years, and
Mhm.
say like, okay, how much do those cost? Okay, how much
Mhm.
can we contribute to them every month? And then what do we not want to spend as much on every month? Now that we see that our Grubhub is $1,900 a month,
Mhm.
usually what people do, this is amazing about coaching. I don't have to convince them to stop spending $1,900 on Grubhub. They see it and they're like, I don't want to do that. I want a new car.
Yes.
Okay, then bring
Yes.
it down 300, and then bring it
Right.
down another 100, and another. Slowly bring those numbers down so that the saving starts happening instead of the spending.
Yeah. Yeah, Amazon was such
Mhm.
a big thing for us, was like no idea how much we were spending on Amazon. And it's gotten worse and then it gets better. Like we'll get a handle on it and then we'll just be like, okay, no more Amazon. And then then it got bad again for a while. So it's how do we handle Amazon and like online shopping and all of that stuff?
Online shopping is up. Like, I say the three horsemen of the apocalypse are Amazon, Costco, and Target. They're wonderful places, many will say, but at the same time, you can buy like sushi, but also sweatpants at those types
Yeah,
of places as well.
yes. Yeah.
So, how do you clarify and be more careful about those types of things, or home good stores as well? I kind of throw into that loop. So let's take it first to online shopping. If you are noticing you are spending too much on Amazon, I have two pitches for you. First one is to kill Amazon. It is
Mhm.
to stop paying for Prime and put some basically speed bumps between you and Amazon. Because I know it. Is you pick up your phone, I can have jumper cable sent to my home in 2 hours, right, to
That's
fix my
right.
car. I'll just order it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And that doesn't necessarily always have to be fixed. I don't need jumper cables every 2 hours, but luckily I'll be thinking like, "Oh, I need an air purifier. I'll just grab that." So I would say try to resist having Amazon or having the actual delivery of 2 hours, 2 days, get rid of Prime. The other thing
Mm.
is, and this is more for all of
Brutal,
them
by the
across,
way. I just have to insert, like, I don't wanna get rid of my Prime. Like, I
you
can't get rid of
don't,
my Prime because I don't
but
wanna
then
pay for shipping, like, ever. I don't wanna pay for
that's
shipping, you know?
let's talk about this because I think that the thing is, I appreciate that. And here, let's try second option.
Okay, number
Second
2, door
option is
number 2.
that
Yeah.
door number 2, which is helps with the Targets and the Costcos as well, and just online shopping in general,
Mhm.
is we live in a space, as I said, in this year, 2026, where you can buy anything on your phone really quick. And our brains are still trying to absorb that and understand how to manage that. And really, we don't. It just gives us joy. It gives us dopamine hit shopping. It gives us a
Mhm.
dopamine hit researching. Shopping is just like a second. We buy the thing. But it's really like, oh, I need to buy new slippers. Let me read 10 reviews of the best slippers for men at
Yep.
42. Right?
Yep. Yep.
That feels like work. It's like, "Oh, I have to do this thing." It's
Yeah.
not work. I'm sorry. It is played, just
And
camouflaged as work.
yeah, and it's so true because I pride myself on, like, I am a really good researcher and, like, I read all the
Yeah.
reviews and meanwhile, it's, like, 2 in the morning and I'm on my phone in the yeah, yeah.
It's tough, and that's the game. That is a game of capitalism is played to say, like, "Yeah, you are going to be a good capital little, society human
Yeah.
doing all of this work," but really it's also just you shopping. So, here's my pitch. I have people do what their grandmas did and have market day. Grandmas would make a list of all the things they need, and my grandma would get in the car on that Thursday and she would drive to the market. She would go to Smitty's, which was a all for one store in Scottsdale, Arizona in the
Mhm.
1950s, and pick up a tricycle and her bag of groceries. But she would do that all in one day and she wouldn't spread it out. And so, what I want folks doing this, if you say, I'm spending more than I feel comfortable with,
Mhm.
open your Apple phone, your iPhone, your Apple phone, open some notes and have your market day list. When you think you want something, just write it down. And
Mhm.
then pick a day you will buy all of the things on your list if you want to. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to see this list of 10 things, maybe 20 things. Your brain will start sorting it. That sorting will say, I don't actually care about the jumper cables as much as I
Mhm.
care about little cups for my kids. I don't really care about this, but I really want this. And then the other thing is you only research on that day. And guess what happens?
Mm.
Instead of researching maybe 90 minutes a day, or let's say 30 minutes a day,
Mhm.
instead of doing that 3.5 hours on that Thursday that's your market
Mhm.
day, you research like 20 minutes because you're like, I don't want to do all that. There's other
Right.
things as a parent, as a human, you want to spend your time doing. So it really condenses all of it. You spend less and you save more and you get the stuff that's most valuable.
Brilliant, brilliant, and it takes out that impulse buy thing where it's where you're
Yes.
buying one thing and then they show you something else and you're like, "Oh,
Yep.
yeah, I need that too," or
Yep.
my classic thing is, "Oh, that's such a good deal, like, I gotta get that," even
Yeah.
if I don't need it because 'cause I'm like, "But it's such a good deal."
Yeah.
You
That's
know?
all the psychology
Yeah.
that marketers put forward, and I'll say this also, credit card points are a reward
Oh
system that are
god, totally.
psychologically made for us to spend. We
Points,
get
yep.
1%, but psychology shows we spend for royalty programs 15 to 25% more if we know there's an incentive. So yeah, they're happy to give us 1% if they get 25% more spending happening.
Yeah, you know what's a really insidious one that I just realized was happening to me was Capital One told me as I was in Capital One, and then they said, "Do you want to add this thing to your browser?" To get
Yeah.
deals or whatever it was, something, and all you have to do is, it's like 2 clicks or whatever. And I was like, okay, I guess whatever. Now they are, first of all, completely aware of everything I'm looking for, and they're coming
Mm.
into even my inbox somehow, and they're everywhere telling me that they have a deal for me about this thing that I was looking at and I should buy it through that. And I realized that I was starting to like buy stuff just because it was a good deal and they were telling me, and I quickly just discovered, yeah, no, no. And
Yeah.
they're co-opting my time and my energy, and they're pulling me from, I was doing something else and now they're coming in and telling, it's just kind of gross.
Very
Yeah.
gross. Not even there's no
Yeah.
kinda there. It
Yeah, it's
is. It
gross.
is
Yeah.
it is they're co-opting your value system, essentially. They're saying,
Yeah.
"We want you to prioritize these things over what you already value," and it works in a lot of times. Like, point systems are that's why you go to your local bakery, they're like, "Hey, do you wanna join our point system, our reward system?" It's
Mhm.
like, buying a $2 croissant. Why how many
Right.
points do I need to get another croissant?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I hear you. Speaking of values, something that many parents value, I certainly do, is putting away money for my kids for their education. Is the 529 still the way to go? Is that like the thing to still do? And how do we prioritize that? And how much
Yeah.
realistically do we need to be giving to that?
How much do we now, just to for all your listeners, if you're not familiar, the 529 is the college savings account that is basically a tax shelter for this money. And what it does is it's kind of works like a Roth IRA where you put money in after taxes, like you just can put money in from your bank
Mhm.
account. And then when it comes out, it's been invested, it's earning maybe 5, 6, 7% a year, and they're all run by different states. Every state has a different 529. You get all that money tax free. Now, that should set it doesn't sound as sexy as it is, but it's a
Mhm.
pretty incredible benefit to be able to
Mhm.
get because the IRS and Uncle Sam likes to take in the state that you live in and maybe the city, they like to take, 15 to 25% of what you earn. So if you put money in
Mhm.
there and it earns over 100 grand, Uncle Sam's going to usually take $25,000, not for a 529. You get it if it is used for school scot free, entirely free
Mhm.
to you. Is it worth it? Yeah, I think it's a great benefit. I highly, highly recommend it. Now, the bigger question is like, well, how much should we contribute? And I get that
Mhm.
question. I last year I had 4 folks have
Mhm.
children brought into their lives last year, and that was a big question for all of my clients and people who were thinking
Mhm.
about bringing kids into their house.
Yeah.
I would say the first thing when I think about college savings is make sure you're taking care of yourself first. Now, what do I mean by
Mhm.
that? Make sure your retirement money is aligned first. Like, are you contributing for your own future? We want to give to our kids, obviously. College is important for many people, obviously. But unfortunately for retirement, for those listeners
Mhm.
and viewers, we can't take out a loan for retirement. It is all on you,
That's true.
and
Yeah, good
we
point.
wanna give to our kids, but college is something, if need be, you could take out student loans, right? It's not
Right.
necessarily
Yeah.
the thing you'd want, like, President Obama was paying off his student loans, I think, while he was a senator still. So this
Oh
is
my
a
god.
long-term thing
Yeah.
possibly, but I really want you to put the focus on yourself to say, like, assess, "How am I doing on retirement? Am I meeting my goals there?" And then looking at 529 contributions. Start with $25 if you're not
Mhm.
sure. I think open the
Mhm.
529 as soon as the kiddo is as young as possible,
Okay.
and then just take advantage of that as much as you can. So it still makes a
Mhm.
difference. The bigger question you might be thinking, Rachel, is like, well, how much do I need for college? Right?
Well, yeah, and again, that's something that, like, we don't know what it's gonna end up maybe it's free by the time they're,
Yeah.
we can all wish, so
Yeah.
I don't
I mean,
know.
this was such a funny question asked 5 years ago by my clients before AI turned into what it was and how it's
Mhm.
changed what education is, changed what knowledge is. And so it's really curious to think about if you have like a 2 or 3-year-old maybe listening to the call. It's like, okay, what does this mean in 15 years? I
Yeah.
cannot predict that. I don't have a magic ball. Here's what I would say is that this money is available to the children. It is available to the immediate family members, tax-free as well. And if you wanna take it out and say, like, "Listen, little Danny's not going to college," it
Mhm.
can still be taken out, but the IRS will say, like, "Okay, well, you didn't pay taxes on it, we're gonna take a penalty from it." A penalty is very
Mm.
scary, but what it means is it basically covers the tax cost. So don't
Okay.
not do it because you're, like, necessarily unsure about the future.
Right.
If in 5 years it's 2031, you're listening to this podcast and the robots are doing all the work, then maybe college isn't right for your little one. But as of right now, I still invest in my kids' 529. How much we'll need, I don't know. I think I contribute what I can, but I make sure myself is covered. I make sure their immediate needs are covered, but I do have
Mhm.
an automatic amount constantly going in there every month.
Uh-huh. Yeah. That is a really good point about the retirement thing. I know so many people that still in their 40s and 50s do not have a any kind of a retirement plan. W- What is your advice to them? Because I know a lot of creatives and it's very, very difficult to save for that because it's like you don't have money. And then when you finally get money, you have to pay everything that you were not paying. And how do you do that?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm doing a talk at USC actually to undergrads about how to start saving for money at 21 because I
Mhm.
know that problem at 40 and 50. And there's a lot of 40 and 50-year-olds out there that, think of my parents, my grandparents' age, they were school teachers, nurses, and they have a pension. And a lot
Mhm.
of jobs had pensions where you had a
Yeah.
guaranteed amount every month till you died, or 401ks or 403bs if you work for an employer. But if you're creative and you get 1099s, if you are doing freelance, it's really up to you. Now, you should be paying into Social Security because I have a firm belief that Social Security will still exist, and that could be $1,000 to $4,000. I think is the ceiling that you get into depending on how much you contribute. So that is one part of it. If you
Okay.
don't have a pension, if you don't have a 401k with your job, if you do have a 401k or 403b, try to contribute there first as much as you can. At least match it.
Mhm.
Meaning,
Mhm.
if your employer says, "We'll give you free money. If you put in 3%, Dylan, we'll put in 3%." Do that at least. So do that
Yeah.
first if you're able to.
Yep.
Then look at retirement and opening a Roth IRA
Mhm.
likely. And
Mhm.
your bigger question was like, well, what do you do if I'm sitting here, I'm 45 or 55, I don't have assist retirement
Yeah.
lined up. I'm just been
Mhm.
hustling for 30 years in this wonderful
Yeah.
game of ours.
Yep.
I think still make a plan. Like the first thing you need to do is the same thing as everybody needs to do. Is saying like, listen, what do I want retirement to look like? If you never imagined you'd be able to retire, then try to define what that is if you have to retire. A lot of people say like, I love my
Mhm.
job. I have a college professor right now as a client, and they're like, I could do this forever. But maybe you don't feel like that at 75. Maybe you're
Mhm.
like ready to get off the train at 65.
Yeah.
Then try to understand like what are the things you need What are the things that people will be expecting from you? Is there any family
Mhm.
support? And also to see if there's any family support coming towards you. You know, inheritance
Mhm.
is a real thing, generational wealth.
Mhm.
Try to
Mhm.
understand the other individuals in your family about like what is their will and trust situation. Now, it doesn't have to be like calling up dad right now and saying like, how much money am I getting, dad?
Yeah.
But it's really just having an understanding saying like, hey, I'm working on my finances. I'm
Mhm.
trying to get a clear picture about where I stand right now. How do you think about that as well? To see like where do you stand with those types of things? How do your parents' needs? Because you might also be supporting them in some regard.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
I'd say just making a plan is the first start, and it's starting about looking how much you spend, like we talked about in the first 10 minutes, looking about what your goals are and making room for
Mhm.
retirement. Because
Mhm.
even it might feel like 45, 50, it's like it's too late. Sorry, it's not too late. It's too late if you don't ever do it. But if you start doing it, you're doing it, and that's what
Yeah.
matters.
Yeah, yeah. How do you handle when you're in a relationship and you don't see eye to eye financially speaking, or can you just give us any kind of a sense of like how do you handle, because it's a hard thing to for two people who grew up differently, they have different, they grew up with in different situations, to come together and have to run this corporation, this business as you're talking about, if they don't see eye to eye about the financial stuff. What's your
Yeah.
advice?
Yeah, which is very honestly normal. Like we did grow up in
Mhm.
different households, and but that means when we say that, it's like we grew up with different values. Like we saw money differently, and our first relationship with money is our first relationship with our parents and how they used money
Mhm.
and how it was either a stressor or they didn't talk about it or they talked about it too much. And usually we don't live in a society where we also talk about it outside of family, or even if we
Right.
do, it's not necessarily positive. So we don't come in with good energy usually with money. And they're different energies. So when you said it's interesting because you're like, we have different financial feelings. That's maybe true. But what I love about working with couples is that your reason you're together is you love each other, you want to be together, and you have something that's there. And so when I say for couples who are trying to work on this, A, put it on the calendar, light a
Mhm.
candle, actually do something to make this moment special. And not joking about the candle. I think that can be very important.
Okay.
But say, like, instead of saying, like, "Hey, you spent too much on Target. Hey, why did you go out for drinks? So how much was this? Why didn't you get refunded or Venmoed for this?" Never start a conversation like that. Never, 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 never. Even if
Mm.
that person did something wild, it's not gonna end the way you want. They're not gonna just
Yeah.
apologize and change their habit. It'll make you feel better for half a second. Instead, if you want sustained, meaningful change, start from where you 2 are together in the same place, not necessarily where you're apart. Where you're together is probably your goals.
Mhm.
You 2 are
Mhm,
together.
mhm.
Do you vacation together? Do you live in the same house? Do you like having furniture? Think of those things that are saying, "Hey, what do we want to do and create in the next few years? If we're having a family or growing our family, what do we want to do? What are the costs around that?" Right? We want
Mhm.
to take care of your mother. What do you think that's looking like? Are we sending her 500? Are we having her move in? Are we helping her with elder care? Figure out those numbers. So, talking about the realities of your existence, the big, meaningful things, those serious things I talked about, and the fun things, that is
Mhm.
where you want to start because those are also non negotiable. They're also things you
Mhm.
agree on. And then you look at the spending and say, like, if we've decided these things are really important for us to spend money on, that we really are important for our goals, what habits do we need to change to make that happen? So then we
Mhm.
do look at our restaurants, we look at our groceries, look at our fast food, look at our shopping, look at our travel. And then it's an easier buy in for both parties because you said, well, we did say we need to help support your mom. We did say we want to go to Disney World in 2027.
Mhm.
So then we have to change these things, right? There's no ambiguity. What's funny about numbers is that they're numbers. There's no ambiguity to it. It's like very clear. If we want this,
Mhm.
we have to do less of that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
it
yeah.
takes the emotional side of it because it's like very clear. This equals that. If we do less of this, we get more of that. Do we want that?
Mhm.
Yes. Then you put it in play. So start from the goals, what you
Okay.
both want, and then go to then what you need to change
Yeah.
afterwards.
What about priorities in terms of, say you have credit card debt, but you also really value, you want to take that Disney vacation? Are you supposed to wait until all your credit card debt is zero to take the Disney vacation, or can you still be saving for it? But then I'm paying all this money in like fees because I'm not paying the full bill. That
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
kind of thing.
Credit card debt can complicate it, because I think also there's a lot of different ways to attack it that can be specific to the individual. So I'm going to tell
Mhm.
you how I think of it is that
Okay.
credit card debt, my biggest goal in working with clients, many of them come to me with credit card debt. And I'll say, my goal is for the debt to never go any higher, not a dollar higher.
Mhm.
But it might be saying, okay, we're living within our means as much as we can, trying to get to that number so we don't have to use a credit card, because that can be sometimes the situation where it's like last
Mhm.
2 weeks we have to use it for groceries, we have to use it for soccer class. I
Mhm.
want to bring your expenses down. And then the credit card payments, we slowly pay them off. We might transfer them to a zero balance, or excuse me, balance transfer them to a 0% interest card,
Mhm.
which is
Mhm.
something that's
Mhm.
still available to people. We might transfer them to a personal loan from a bank where the interest rate goes from 25% down to 12%. You could ask for
Okay.
a loan from a family member. There are many
Mhm.
ways to bring that interest payment down. Do I think
Okay.
you should go to Disneyland while paying it off? Possibly. If you have a
Mhm.
road to pay it off, because I want to say is like, listen, and this is something you take home and look at this and say, like, okay, we have, let's say, $20,000 in credit card debt. That doesn't mean you can't go on vacations for the 2.5 years it takes you to pay that off. What it means is like, listen, we're going to pay 300 a month on this, and we know we'll be done May 1st, 2028. If you
Mhm.
know that, if you're clear about it, and you're content about it,
Yeah.
then you could say, all right, do we have savings for other things that we want to do? And that could be Disney World. It could be Disney France for all I care. But I
Mhm.
want to make sure that you have a plan to pay it off and the credit card debt never goes up again.
Got it. I love that. By the way, I hear Disney France and like Japan, Japanese Disney are like cheaper. People are finding now that it's like, oh, it's cheaper to go there than it is to go in, in the States. I don't know what your
I
feelings
would
are
not
on
be surprised. I would not be
that.
surprised.
Yeah. Um, I have been on your mailing list and I'm really enjoying your content. So first of all, thanks for that. He sends
Thank
out
you.
like, little videos and different like tips and stuff. So I want to encourage people to get on your mailing list. And I also just wanted to ask you about this really cool thing that I just happened to see that you're doing that I signed up for. It's called like help me with the name, something, the admin hour, the get it done
Finally
admin hour, something.
Finally done admin hour, because
Finally
doing
done
this for
admin.
so long, I've recognized there's just so many money tasks, and myself included. As I say, I get up early and I get those money tasks done because I want to get them done. And I think I want an hour for people to say, this is where I'm getting my money done. Because as I said, I've said it 15 times, calendars rule. They rule our lives. So it's a
Mhm.
set time every 2 weeks. We share our video. We have our video up and we say, like, here's one money tip I'm going to give you. We're going to execute it, get it done. It might be unsubscribing from newsletters. It might be unsubscribing from that one $12 subscription every month. It'll save us $150 for the year. It might
Mhm.
be looking into life insurance and getting that in play for you. You're gonna try to do that whole thing, plus maybe bring 2 other money things you want done. Maybe you need to write your accountant, maybe you need to send him one form, maybe you need to sign a document, maybe you need to reach out to your uncle about a payment. These are all things we don't
Yeah.
wanna do. They're not top of
Maybe
mind.
you
They're
have
not
to do your
career building.
taxes. I can't
Yes.
I keep putting my
Yes.
taxes off. I had the best intentions this year of like, I'm gonna get it done early, and it's the thing that I push the
Yes.
furthest away because I don't wanna do my taxes, but, like, I
That's
really
it.
wanna it's this little voice in my head that's like, "You still haven't done your taxes. You still haven't,"
That
Yeah.
if you are listening and you have that same feeling, because I appreciate that feeling too, that is the stuff you should bring, because then you just get it
Okay.
done. You
Yeah.
get it done. You get the accountability. And there's research about it. This is called body doubling. When you're around people who are also working, like I would go to the library at NYU when I was living in New York, and I would write because I was
Mhm.
around 200 other students who were also writing, and it
Mhm.
made me focused. I can't focus when I'm with my roommates. We're all hanging around watching football. I'm not going to get any writing done. So get that focus around other people. Finally done every 2 weeks. You can find it on my website, dylanteachesfinance.com, and it's open to everybody.
That's amazing. Yeah, it's absolutely free too for people who are struggling. And then if you want to actually work with Dylan one on one, or you're in a couple and you want to work together as a couple, again, I can't recommend it enough. It really, really helped us to get a handle on our finances. And I think you do discovery calls, as you mentioned, correct? So they can
Yeah.
go to your website and like find you there and um, like have a little short meeting with you or something?
In that meeting, we'll figure out what it is that you need to work on. Like, we'll basically, I like to call it a financial mapping session. We'll say, like, okay, these are the areas that I think we can address in the time we work together. I work with clients now 3 to 6 months, and we'll say, like, okay, we're going to get these things done. And this isn't, therapy's great. There can be very long term. I want to get you in and out the door in 6 months. And so that you have these new
Yeah.
habits, new systems, so that in 2 years later, you still like, oh, yeah, I know how to manage buying a new home, adding another child to our family, supporting my mom, because I worked with Dylan 2 years ago,
Yeah.
and I have those tools. So, yeah, I love doing those
Awesome.
calls.
Dylan, thank you so much for being here today with us.
You're very welcome, Rachel. This was a delight.
Yeah. All right. I'll see you on the flip. Okay, take care.
Take care.